I want to take a second to talk about the value of self-compassion as a neurodivergent. Now, the concept may sound a little bit too fluffy and maybe woo-woo to most folks because a lot of us have complex trauma, and one of the symptoms of complex trauma is a tyrannical inner critic. And this critic is always rearing its ugly head, coming at you and criticizing anything that is perceived to be soft or a weakness or some kind of unnecessary concession that you're making because you're lazy or you're this or that. It is an embodiment of internalized ableism, criticism, the bullying, the misattunement that attachment figures in our lives have directed towards us. We've learned to embody it and to express it to ourselves so that we can beat catastrophe to the punch by punching ourselves first. A little bit counterintuitive because ultimately the criticisms don't motivate us. They're very demotivating and they're very demoralizing. They just keep you small, safe, but stunted and stuck. And to kind of counteract this tyrannical inner critic, we can use self-compassion. And self-compassion is three things, basically. Being mindful, noticing what's going on, widening the gap between stimulus and response, engaging common humanity, recognizing that our struggle is universal and that many people struggle, and we're not alone in our struggle, and that we're not defective for struggling, and then responding with kindness. For example, putting a hand over your heart and a soothing gesture and saying something similar like, "This is a moment of hurt. Ouch. I'm not enjoying this. I'm really struggling right now." Sitting with what you're experiencing and responding in the way that an attuned attachment figure would, giving you kindness, warmth, compassion, and empathy in a moment of struggle. Many of us have not had that experience, so we have no idea how to do that for ourselves. However, doing it by cultivating a self-compassionate mindset, we can slowly loosen the hold that this critic has over our hearts, souls, and our minds, and achieve something like freedom. It never necessarily goes away. It is a part of our identity and it serves a function, but it has a monopoly over our psyche, and that's where it becomes destructive. I find that often employing common humanity is the hardest part because a lot of people who are neurodivergent like myself have a form of negative exceptionalism. I am the exception to everybody else in my badness. I'm exclusively a crap person. And I see that in my population working with ADHDers and autistics. That's a common perception, is that I'm exclusively bad. And there's this, and I think this is universal as well with people with a really tyrannical inner critic and with complex trauma. The unfortunate thing is when you engage in that mindset, you kind of fail to take perspectives and you zero in on yourself as being the problem, which again is something learned as a result of trauma to kind of keep you on your toes and keep you walking very carefully, not treading on eggshells because you're afraid that you might incur some kind of disaster or retaliation or attack from somebody. We're always braced for some kind of catastrophe or attack to come. When I struggle with common humanity, something I find really helpful is what I call the broken phone example. I often am klutzy and drop things and I smash more than a few tablet and phone screens accidentally, and I always get upset and dysregulated and attack myself about it because it's a lot of money gone down the drain for this small error. And I always used to think it's just me exclusively who's breaking my phone, and then I'll see somebody across the street from me or walking down the road or at a workplace that I'm at and they have a smashed screen, and I go, I'm not the only one. Other people smash their phone screens. I'm not, this negative exceptionalism that I apply to myself is not applicable. This is a universal thing that happens to people. And maybe phone screens should be made a little bit more tough and less prone to breaking. Maybe the problem is that they shrink these phones down to be so slim and so light, and that we have to end up wrapping them in layers of plastic and silicone and protective coatings to stop them getting smashed, which is like nonsensical when you think about it. So kind of like being mindful as well and teasing apart the complex nuances of this problem, and then also employing that common humanity and going, I'm not exclusively bad. This happens to many people. So I don't deserve to self-flagellate about this and feel like I'm exclusively bad or a terrible person or a failure or a complete klutz because it's universal. Have you struggled with self-compassion? Have you found that engaging self-compassion and recognizing common humanity alleviates some of that load that you carry as a result of this tyrannical inner critic? I would love to hear from you.